welcome back. We are here yet again in the studio with another fabulous guest lined up for you. As you all know, I've been on this trajectory of interviewing women, badass women, not only in the community, but in and around San Diego that are making a massive difference in the community. And today I've been actually looking forward to this. I mean, I always look forward to all of my guests, but today and the days leading up to today, I've been really looking forward to this because in the world that we know it today, and in our country and in our state, there's so many relevant women pieces of information, whether it's the news, articles, stories that need to be shared that aren't being shared. And I feel like we need to bring a voice to it. We need to bring a face to it. We need to bring transparency to it. And today I have a woman on the pod that has done that. She has created this media and news website called Girl News. And yes, we've got the Chihuahuas on the pod today. She has created this media and news website called Girl News. In a world owned by boys, at least they think they own the world, we need to hear about the girls. So today we have Blair Arbuckle. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. That was an amazing intro. And I'm glad you said about the Chihuahuas because my hands are down here and you're going to feel like, what is she doing?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, there's so many accolades behind your name other than ultra marathoner. That's A. I mean, the woman does it all. And if you follow her on Instagram, you'll know by looking at her feed, she will run. I don't know how far she's been running, but she will hold her phone up and have on there captions of the girl news that you may have missed that day that are so relevant. But she's also an ultra marathoner. But more importantly, she is doing what so many of us women talk about doing but have not done, girl news. How did how did this come to be in existence, girl news?
Yeah, great question. So I was working in tech and have been working in tech for about the last 12 years. And I've kind of always thought I'm a really good operator. I'm a good person to figure out a problem. But I never felt like I need to be in the spotlight. I need to be the CEO myself. And so I always kind of attached myself to a CEO and would build his dream often. And often it was a he.
Mm.
And I was working at an international company, and we had a lot of employees in India. And my Indian colleagues were posting on Instagram and talking to me about this female doctor who was raped and killed while at work, taking a nap in her place of work, and was raped and killed. And they said it was a suicide, and it was just this insanely huge story in India. And I mean, India has more people in that country than any other country in the world. And I'm here sitting in the United States, and this news story was nowhere.
Mm.
And I just thought, well, that's crazy. How can a huge country have riots on the streets and have this be the biggest topic of conversation, but I'm not hearing about it at
Mm.
all? So I went down some rabbit holes and found that this is honestly an statement here, but 75% of the world's news is about men. And what that means is if you go through any of your favorite news sites, CNN, you know, whatever the case may be, even if it's Fox, whatever it may be, and you look at is the source of the subject of each news story, it's a man, the vast majority of them. And so even if there are stories that are being written about women, they're just few and far between. So let's say you love CNN and you go there and the 8 out of the top 10 stories are going to be about men, whether it's the Girl Scouts versus the Boy Scouts being highlighted, or, they're talking about medicine and they're talking to a male doctor versus a female doctor. It's just everywhere. So the first thing for me was like, I want to be able to see women. I want to be able to see these stories. So I don't even need to necessarily come up with all this content on my own, but how do I just see the stories that are already out there? And that was the first thing, was build it for myself so that I can
Educate
actually
yourself
know
about it. Yeah.
know
Power
what's going
yourself.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the very first iteration of it was literally, and this is basically what the website is today too, every 2 hours we scrape all the top news sites and just pull
Amazing.
out all the headlines about women. And so you can see just this is what's going on in health and politics and
Amazing.
tech and sports and everything.
In a, we're going to go there because it just came to my mind, in a new administration that does not focus on that.
Yeah.
This is so much more than relevant. This is so needed, and I feel like not only does your story need to be told, but it needs to be, and I know you're doing a documentary, and we'll get into that shortly, but it needs to be shared, and the fact that you started it is completely beyond amazing. What life experiences, other than what you just shared with us, tell us a little bit about yourself that led you to this, other than that
Yeah.
incident with the woman in India?
Yeah, I have 2 sisters. I, grew up with, like many people, I think my mom hung the moon. I have
Mm,
a fabulous father as well. But I just grew up surrounded by women
yeah,
and just very aware of what challenges that might bring, and sure, there are great things about being a woman, of course, as well, but I was just hyper aware my whole life
yeah.
of being a woman, and something you mentioned earlier, maybe even before we started recording, um, I'd always kind of I always had considered myself a feminist,
Mm,
but when I looked at, especially when I heard this news story, I was like, "What am I actively doing every single day to move this forward? And
yeah,
if I'm not, who am I waiting for to do this?"
right.
Was Susan B. Anthony waking up every single day and thinking somebody else is gonna do this for me?
Or Rosa Parks,
Or Rosa Parks for sure, or anyone,
or Judge, who passed, the, woman,
RBG,
okay,
yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
right,
Again, like, it's like, if you actually wanna make change,
right.
um, y it has to start with
Just
you,
start.
and also, like, I was tired of waiting. I was tired of saying, like,
Mhm.
"It's gonna get better," and it has gotten better. Of course, it has gotten better. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's gotten worse too,
Yeah,
but I don't even wanna wait till tomorrow. I don't even wanna wait till later today to get equality. Like, that's ridiculous
yeah.
and the fact that anyone is standing for that, no matter what minority group you are, like, yesterday was the day that you should have had equal rights.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that argument to me of like, "Well, it's getting better," get out of here with
It can be better for sure. It can be much better, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
just like anything else can be better, but this is something that I feel like will be an issue for the rest of time.
Yeah,
The rest of time, because the credit isn't given the way it should be given. And when it just started to be given, it was yanked away
yeah,
with this recent administration doing what they're doing. Right. So
yeah.
that's a whole nother issue. And I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash on that, but I don't care. So I know what the main mission of Girl News is. I kind of get a sense about it. What kind of stories do you prioritize sharing?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot, especially, for example, I have Fox News on the site.
Mm,
I went back and forth about whether or not I wanted to have, Fox News on the site. Basically, what I end up doing is, number 1, is the news source reputable? And what that means to me is it would people look at the name and say, like, "Okay, yes, that is like, there's funding behind them. They're not just some random person just
right.
kind of spewing their own thoughts." That's one. But Fox News is a good example of that. Sure, it's reputable in a way, and it's an established news network, but that's where number 2, is it factually
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
And so if something's not factually correct, like if it's an opinion piece, but a lot of what they're saying is just not based on anything, then I'm not gonna share it.
right.
So I would say those are the main 2 things. Um, I get a lot of people sending me stories too that I want to share, but at the same time, like, I want to be really careful about, if you see it on Girl
Yeah,
News, it should be something that, like, you don't have to double check or triple check, because I've already done that for
right,
you,
right.
and I've said, like, "Okay, sure, maybe I'm posting it and it's from NBC," but before I
Let's
post
fact
it,
check
I
it.
make sure, like,
Yeah,
it was on NBC, it was on CNN, it was over here, the UN reported on it, like, it's actually true, and you can, believe it.
yeah. So I know sometimes when you post on your platforms, you're running, which is such a that marathon, the ultra marathon aspect is such a big part of your life. What sort of impact do you hope to have on your audience aside from education, awareness, empowerment?
Yeah.
What do you feel that to be?
Yeah. I was never a runner. I started running after my mom died, and I started running because it was the second worst thing I could think of. I was living with my sister in Texas in the middle of coronavirus, and she had 2 young kids. And I was trying to, like, kind of be a good aunt and, like, teach them, do hard things, and I was mourning my mom, and trying to do my remote job, and was just like, "How am I gonna do this? Like, does my remote work even matter?" Like, I'm dealing with my mom dying. There's a global pandemic. I'm trying to like help raise these kids.
Be everything to everyone.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay, I have to teach myself something else. I have to like really put this into practice. So I actually had a friend whose family once locked her out of her house,
Mm.
and said, we'll let you back in once you've run a mile. And you can walk it, you can crawl it, you can do whatever you need, but you need to move
Wow.
for a mile. And so I said, I'm just going to do that to myself. And it was so horrible. I mean, I'm running again today, and I'm
Oh
not
my
looking forward to it. Like,
gosh.
I don't wanna run, but I want to teach myself and other people that things do get better. Like,
Mm.
if you practice them, even if it's literally the worst thing you can think of, you can teach yourself in these small steps
Yes.
to get better and
Right.
to move forward. It doesn't mean you have to pick the thing that you hate the most and
Right.
try it, but that's important to me. Also, 95% of my following is female, which or identifies as a woman, which is amazing to me. If you looked at all the people in my life, I wouldn't say that 95% of them are women, but like
Mm.
that, I'm so proud that those are the types of people that want to follow me.
Yeah.
I also want to be a good example for those people. So like I don't use filters in my videos.
Mm.
If you look at my videos, often I'm in a sports bra and
Mhm.
shorts.
Mhm.
You can see my tummy moving around, and like that's a real body. Like
Authentic.
I'm running like over 50 miles a week. And like, yeah, when I run, like my body moves. Like I want not only kids to see that, but also adults.
Yeah.
Like, how often are you on social media and you're like, wow, this person's so incredible. Wow. And like is actually real.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm in a sports bra and shorts, but like my audience that looks at that is women is just very powerful to me.
Mhm.
And it's also cool too that like, okay, I don't get recognized a ton, but like if people notice me, it's women who know who I am and not men. And
Yes.
that's just really cool. And the whole idea of like there is room for other women at the table. Like
Mm.
you aren't taking a spot away from somebody else.
Right. There's no competition
Oh
there.
my God, this
Right.
is one of my favorite quotes from Mindy Kaling is
Mhm.
from her Dartmouth commencement speech, where she talks about basically how we're raised thinking like there's a one woman spot and like there aren't that many spots. So like
Mhm.
we're in competition with each other then
Mhm.
because they're not going to let four women in the C suite. So if there's just going to be one, it's got to be me then,
Yeah.
obviously. And it's like, actually, why don't we work together to dismantle a system?
Collaborate.
Yeah, that like
Yeah.
says that there's only room
Partner.
at the table
Yeah.
for one of us.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that is all just really important to me, and I shied away from the camera at the beginning, and now it's like I love it. I
Yeah.
love sometimes when I like create my cover photo, I try to pick sometimes a picture where like I look a little bit just not naturally pretty or like,
Mm.
oh, is she fat? Like,
Mm. Yeah.
things like that because yeah, obviously I'm not. Like obviously I'm working my butt off
Yeah.
and like anyone can do it. Your body is perfect right now.
Mhm.
And also all those points of conversation, like I want you to think about. And even the fact that it's called girl news,
Yeah.
I get a lot of people talk to me about that.
Mm.
And like saying that girls is like, we're like infantilizing people, women, we're doing this, we're doing this. And like, there's so many things, but like, yeah, maybe have all that conversation and maybe that's important. And like, why is the word girl so triggering for somebody? Or like, maybe you're focusing on the wrong part of it or like, there's just so many different things, but at the end of the day, you're talking about it.
Right.
And that's much more important than
The semantics.
yeah,
Yes.
and then somebody saying like feminism, we don't really need it anymore. Like
Oh.
we have equality. Yeah, but then you say the word girl and it causes such a big stir, like maybe we should keep talking about this.
Well, and I love that you touched on all of those points because every one of those reasons that are so important to you as to your why are issues that we contend with as women today, right? It's society, social media, filters. It's all about living our best lives on social media and putting the filter face forward. And that's largely part of why I don't wear a lot of makeup and I don't do what most realtors would do or women in business would do is, and I don't guss it up. Do I guss it up when I want to? Absolutely. But on a day-to-day basis, I find that to be so much more relatable the way that you're approaching it. Yeah, we all have fat, right? But you're not fat, right? We all have loose skin, but it doesn't mean that you're overweight, right? And if we can embrace that and stop fighting that persona and that typecast that we've kind of put on ourselves, if you really think about it, and society's reinforced it, I think that that'll be a safer space for us as women to really stop and go, okay, I'm getting older and that's okay. You know what? My skin isn't as tight as it used to be. It doesn't matter how much I'm working out or how much I'm running or eating well. It's that you're going to have some aging.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're allowing it to be the norm in your space, girl news, female, women, whatever, however you want to refer to it, it's important to talk about it,
Yeah.
right? Because we are so stuck in this rut as women that we have to be a certain way, look a certain way. We talked about this off camera. You know, we're filling everybody else's cup. We're not filling our own cup. And by the time we're done at the end of the day, we are so depleted
Yeah.
from whatever society tells us, whatever we're reading, whatever we're hearing, whatever we're doing, that there's nothing left for us.
Yeah.
And I feel like this space that you've created is really, really just amazing and authentic and transparent. You know, on that note, what's one of the most, what story you're most proud of sharing? Like, I'm sure there's so much you've shared. There has to be one that you've basically just said, oh my gosh, this one takes it, or at least it's in the top 5.
I think everything that I share about women in Afghanistan,
Mm.
uh, it's kind of I feel both ways about it. One, I feel helpless because literally women in Afghanistan, it is illegal for them to talk to each other right now. Like,
To each other.
to each other. A woman can't talk to another woman. Um, and I just shared another article yesterday that you know, with the Trump cuts and U.S. aid, it's affecting women in Afghanistan as well. And the headline was something like, "Nobody cares about us. Nobody cares about women in Afghanistan." And honestly, if I were a woman in Afghanistan, I'd probably think the exact same thing. And
Wow.
sharing those stories are just so urgently important. And I'm not saying that by sharing them, I'm solving them, because I feel helpless about it. But like, at least we need to know, and it needs to be something that we talk about all the time. Like, okay, I lived on a military base, and I was a little kid when we like went in, you know, Afghanistan and Iraq and all these things, and like weapons of mass destruction, which we didn't end up having, or they didn't end up having. But anyway, like, even that, like, to me, if a country has weapons of mass destruction, is that worse than if a
Yeah.
country like it doesn't give half their population rights
Yeah.
and doesn't let them talk to each other?
Yeah.
Like, why are we not talking about maybe not invading Afghanistan, but why is that not something that we're talking about every single day?
Right.
Um,
Right.
eh, so I think that just is urgently important to me. Um, the situation that's happening in Gaza obviously is like overwhelming as well. Um, Basically, just any story or any person, any follower that I get, any message that I get that's like, I did not know these stories. That is what I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
In my own conversations,
Yeah.
I talk about March Madness so much more now. And also, like, if you look at March Madness, it's a great example because, like, literally women, like, women's March Madness, more people watch women's March Madness.
Yeah.
If you look at the top 5 players in March Madness, 4 of them are most followed.
Mhm.
4 of them are women.
Mhm.
The 5th is a guy.
Mhm.
Just like, everything that I talk about is completely different now, and that's just with access to information.
Right.
You know, we saw this especially in 2016 when Trump was elected, and we're like, how is that possible? And then Facebook, and we're like, oh my gosh, the information that you get like really impacts your worldview. And
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does. So if you're more intentional about it and you don't just accept whatever everybody wants to tell you and instead say, like, what are people showing me
Right.
right here, and what do I want to see?
Right.
You know, girl news doesn't solve everything, and it's not to say, oh, don't look at normal news anymore. Choose any minority,
Yeah.
and they should have they shouldn't have to have their own news site, but like, you'd find the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so giving people access to their own
So
stories.
do you feel like that's a challenge when you do when you do your reporting and your researching? I mean, is that some of the challenges you find yourself faced with?
I would say one of the biggest challenges that I find myself faced with, number one, is like, how do I turn how do I go from step one, which is giving people access to the information,
Mhm.
to making change? Because yes, like giving people access to information is great. And then how do I change the situation for
Mhm.
women? That's a big challenge that I'm working through and figuring out how do I activate this community in the best way possible. Um, and then the other thing I would say is I am a white woman and I want to be very aware of that and be as intersectional as possible.
Right.
The more you learn about feminism, the more you realize that historically there's a lot of racism in feminism as well.
Mhm.
And there's kind of been, especially in the United States, a ranking system of like there's white men and then like, oh, is it black men or white women that then are next? And then always black women are like at the
Right.
very bottom.
Right.
And it's like, okay, when you're talking about women, you also need to understand socioeconomic status.
Mhm.
Like, when do women get kind of quiet on feminism because then they're realizing, oh, I benefit from this other part of the
Right.
system, so maybe I'm not going to fight that so much. Being a fiscally Republican, like,
Right.
okay, well, that just, I mean, that's kind of
It's a
another
whole
rabbit
different,
hole.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole another
Um,
conversation.
but being an intersectional
Yeah.
feminist is really important to me. So, especially anytime anyone comments on it to me and is like, this is a rich white girl, like running in the middle of the day,
Mhm.
only highlighting white people, I'm like, okay, I need to look at this and like really look at what stories did I share again and how am I more intentional about this and how do I share, like, even for example, I will write to people who are releasing books and it's like some books I'm not going to ask for free. I'm just going to buy the book. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Um yeah, that I would say those are my challenges, turning it into action and remembering that I need to be intersectional and how can I be more intersectional at every
Remembering your
single.
purpose, right?
Yeah,
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 remembering your
at
purpose
every
and your
single
why.
place.
With the recent election, obviously with the first female, VP Harris running,
Yeah.
um, the magnitude her presence made in the world, the fact that she was running and the fact that she did what she did in such a short period of time,
Yeah.
and then the aftermath. I know a lot of my girlfriends were devastated, right? Heartbroken, disillusioned, brokenhearted. I mean, all of the adjectives in terms of how they how emotionally felt for a while
Yeah.
thereafter. Even now, it's kind of lingering. How do you feel that story fits into what you're doing, and how did you share when that was going on with Girl News, or if you did?
Yeah. Uh, I wanna say the most important thing that I shared after or and the most important realization I had was after the election when they did the exit poll or they shared the exit poll information, and you see that white women were the only group that or the only group of women that voted more for Trump than for, Harris. And when you to me, what that again made me feel is like, it's actually not these other minority group like, there's no other pressure that I need to put on any black women or even black men because, like, I think sometimes we go to these tiny groups and we're like, "And you should have done more too." And it's like, "Okay, but also look at the majority." And, like, even if, like, okay, one black woman that voted for
Yeah.
Trump, why would you focus on that when, like, there's actually thousands, if not millions more white women that you can turn to first and say like, okay, well, you thought it was more important to prioritize XYZ over human rights or your own rights or whatever the case may be. Even men, like sure, of course, you're always going to want to talk to white men. Like, yes, but also look at your own group. Like it's not always this other group that's ruining your life. Like you can also look at the white women around you. And I think that's actually the most important group for me
Right.
to feel like I'm educating and talking to. Because sure, other people can put pressure on you and put you in situations, but also you can find yourself in a gilded cage and like
Mm.
kind of be keeping yourself in that gilded cage because you're like, oh, my situation is nice compared to what it could be out there. Um, yeah. So for me, I mean, yeah, if I were Hillary Clinton, if I were Kamala Harris, it would be very hard to keep doing what I'm doing every single day.
Right.
Because yeah, we had one of the most qualified people in the history of the presidency run and get beat by just the least qualified person maybe that's ever run. And then
I call him Chucky.
yeah, and then if 8 years later we have
Yeah.
us try to do so many things so differently, and I know so many people are upset about the Democratic Party for different reasons, but Kamala Harris didn't even talk about whether she was a woman or not. Like, she just tried to do so many things differently and tried to learn
In a short period of
in a
time.
short period of time, and it's just like the standards are just so different
Yeah.
for the two different people.
So having said that, and off the heels of that being something that's more relevant right now, what's one thing you wish people understood more about women today? I
Literally
feel like
just
that kind of made us misunderstand one another.
literally just what's happening. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing is we just don't know. Like people just don't realize these things. There's a book called Invisible Women, and it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And basically, it just goes through. I think most of us have had this conversation where someone's like, "Give me an actual example, though, of why we still need feminism. Like, what's an actual example?" And this whole book is just examples of how the world is designed and made for men, and just medical research, how products are designed. So, a great example is a car. A car, they use male crash dummies for the tests.
Oh gosh, they do.
Yeah, and also
Something so I just had to go back in my mind's eye and think about that. They do.
yeah,
Yeah.
and on top of that, they do all the tests based on if the seats are in the normal position. If you change your seat in any way, if you make it go up, if you make it go forward, anything, then they're like, well, you changed how the seat was. We say it's safest when it's in its original settings, so that's kind of on you. The vast majority of women change where their seat is oriented in a car. Things just aren't built for women.
They're not
Um,
economically.
Yeah, period products, they weren't testing them like blood on period products. They were testing some blue, literally a blue liquid
I remember.
for years. But it was not even for the art, for a commercial. That was literally in the lab. That's how they were doing it. They're just countless examples of things that unfortunately you only find out about when you're in the midst of it. I don't know, medical research,
Yeah.
for example. It wasn't until my mom was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer before I was like, what's pancreatic cancer?
Yeah.
And then tried to look into, okay, well then my mom is in these demographics. How does that affect her? How does that blah, blah, blah? What is the research? Oh, actually the research on pancreatic cancer has been done for these groups. Okay, well, and then you're in the middle of it and that's not when you're going to become your best self and best advocate for pancreatic cancer because your mom is dying and you're trying to deal with that.
Which that shaped who you are today. That
Yeah.
whole experience. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of backstory about you. You're an ultra marathoner and you've got a documentary that you're shopping. Tell us a little bit about that because there's going to be a lot of women out there that will want to know more about this. And I feel like I shared this with you prior to this interview. There's so much to you and to what you represent that needs to be shared. And I feel like it would be selfish if it weren't shared. So tell us a little bit about that documentary. What's the inception of that? How did that come to be? You're shopping it to different networks. And, what are the plans
Yeah.
for Girl News?
So for the documentary, the working title right now is called The Hardest Thing. And it's kind of interesting because when the production company came to me at first and wanted to make the documentary, they were like, we see this whole story. And I was like, "Ugh, I don't even feel like my story's done yet. I don't even know what the moral is." And through filming it, it kind of actually came through this story of resilience and what happens when you're faced with the hardest thing. And again, there are a lot of different undertones of what happens when your life gets turned upside down. How do you keep going? How do you try to be the same person that you were before, if not better than that person? All that kind of stuff. In terms of also the story, it's important to me that women can see that they can do literally anything. Running an ultramarathon, if you are a woman who has run an ultramarathon, you are in 0.0001% of the population.
0.00, okay.
So it's a very, 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 very small percentage of the population. But again, like, I would have never said that I could run a mile. And so
Well, who told you that, though?
that I could run a
Was
mile.
that your own concoction in your mind, or did somebody tell you at some point you'll never be able to do that?
Nobody told me. But that's also another thing is like I grew up so confident, but
Mhm.
throughout this whole process, like still I'm sitting in my house sometimes and I'm like, is this gonna work out?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
am I gonna be okay? Am I gonna like who cares about this? And then it's like, dude, I care about it.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. And
That's
like
it.
you have to relentlessly believe in yourself. I know that we always get told that all the time,
Mhm.
but like when it's actually you just by yourself,
Mhm.
you have to really, really remind yourself.
Mhm.
There were literally months, which in retrospect is like, oh, you had a social media account for months and it didn't go viral. Like, okay, boo-hoo. But when you are in those months and it's like 100 people watch this video and then you post the next day and you're like 100 people watch this video. Okay. And you just keep doing it. Like, sure, it's easy to be at this point and say like, yeah, I'll post a video and hopefully 30,000 people will see it by tomorrow. But that was not the case, and it's easy to go to sleep now.
Right.
But back then it was a lot harder, and even now, like there's still going to be challenges. I'm definitely not rich by any sense of the word from Girl News. I am living off my
Yet.
savings here.
Yet.
Yeah. But you have to take risks. So anyway, that hopefully answered your question, but maybe
So,
not at all.
yeah, no. So where do you see this going, right? I mean, I feel like there's so much more that this could do.
Yeah.
I feel
So
like I could see many things, like Girl News. I could see you doing rallies across. I mean, there's so many things that you could do to empower women. And I feel like that's the basis of what this is really all about. This is about empowerment,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
100%.
that resonates with when I first started my real estate career, I remember being, helping women who were single parents, or single women, or having gone through a domestic violence situation, a divorce, whatever life transition that took place that led them to be a single parent.
Yeah.
And I helped them get into their first homes. And I found myself attracting that
Yeah.
because I had once been that, not once, but twice, divorced twice. Didn't know if this was going to be okay. Oh my gosh, will I ever be, better than what my ex-husband said that I was, right? Am I ever going to really pull out of this? He tells me I'm never going to be anything. No one's going to ever love me again. Am I going to really pull out of this?
Yeah.
So when we're told that as women, often it starts to become either you are going to be this because your thoughts become powerful and they become truth,
Yeah.
or you're going to say, you know what, that's not my story.
Yeah.
I'm going to rewrite this chapter and it's going to be different. So I feel like with Girl News, the platform, the world is your oyster, truly. It truly is. And when you do get picked up, share a little bit about the Sports Illustrated, because that's an amazing accomplishment right there. But when you do get picked up, I'm going to say, I knew her when, because you're going to blow up. I mean,
Thanks.
Corbin, you can attest to that. She's going to blow up. So when that does happen, you're going to look back on all of the steps that you took, the moments of doubt, the moments of questioning, the moments of confusion, the moments of, oh my gosh, I didn't do it right over here, or let me go redo the algorithm over here.
Yeah.
But it's all going to make sense
Yeah.
because one thing leads to the next, right? And you're doing it. So what do you feel you want people to understand about women more? Women are so easily misunderstood. If a woman's out there listening right now and she's in that space of, she's right, what Blair's doing is absolutely right, what they're talking about is absolutely right. How can someone out there just start
Yeah.
their own little movement, start, believing in themselves and saying, I'm going to do this. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it pans out. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is I want everyone to know, like, you are inherently worthy no matter what you've done. Like, just as a human, when you are born, like, you have worth, you have value. And so you could look at my life and say, oh, she's great because X, Y, Z. No, I'm great because I'm a great person. I care about people. I have good values. Like, I stand up for other, like, I am good. So I want people to know that, but like, no matter where you are in your life, you're okay. And then just from there, like you said, like just start. Like it will
Yeah.
be Well, I'll give you even an example. So from Girl News, the way I first started, like, and again, like, there's so many mistakes you make that are so easy to see when you're looking back. I was like, I'm gonna start this through my own group of friends, and like, if my friends, they're gonna think this is the best idea ever, and then they're gonna share it with all their friends, and blah blah blah. And yeah, I wasn't growing that way, and I was like, what the heck, like.
Mm.
All my friends don't love this idea, and I was also posting thinking like, "Oh, well, like, this person's gonna see it. That might be stupid. They might think blah, blah, blah." And then once I was like, I know even if I knew 50,000 people, whatever, the world is huge out there. If I just stop focusing on my own people and instead am like, I'm gonna create content, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do what I want to see in the world, and if people come, then they will come, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be this small group of people I already
Right.
know, which is also a good lesson for you of, like, your own bubble.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, like, you think your own bubble is so amazing, but, like, there's just so many people that you don't know. Obviously, there are more people that you don't know than you do.
Right.
And so, like, it wasn't until I stopped ignoring my own group that then I started really going off. And
Mm.
then your own group always is gonna come back to you later, and it's gonna be like,
Oh,
"Oh
wait,
my
hold on a
god,
second.
I had no idea it got
Oh,
so big."
wasn't
Like,
paying attention. Oh, you're this
yeah.
viral now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a good idea, and you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
great."
great. Remember when you didn't like my post?
Yeah, which, like, and,
Which is
those
fine.
moments too, like,
Yeah.
feel good in a
Yeah.
special part of your heart.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just start and keep going,
Yeah.
and, like, that's all I would say. I mean, I'm always calculating in my head, like, how much savings do I have left? What's my runway? What's my blah, blah,
Mm.
blah? But actually my boyfriend gave me really good advice, the other day that I think maybe as women, or in my experience, I am much more risk adverse
Mm.
than I think a lot of the men in my life. And I need to have somebody kind of push me to be more risk friendly.
Mhm.
So, for example, he's like, "You're thinking month to month,
Mm.
and like you need to zoom out and like think of this
Bigger
in
picture,
6 months, think of this in a year.
Yeah.
Like, go get a loan, go do blah, 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 go." And, like, I think we sometimes play it too safe where I'm like, "But these are my savings from my 12 years and blah, 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 and,
Right.
like, I have these stocks. When do I sell some of my stocks and
Right.
when do I blah, blah?" And he's like, "Look, it is working. Like,
Mhm.
you can take risks on yourself, and even if they don't always work out, like, sometimes they will, and it's gonna be worth it." Um,
That's good. That's good advice for women in general.
yeah.
Sometimes it's going to work out, sometimes it isn't, but take the chance on
Oh
yourself.
my gosh. Yeah. Always take the chance. When I was at WeWork, we actually once had an executive who got in a fair amount of trouble because she said statistically men take more risks, and that's one of the reasons that women don't get promoted as much.
Mm.
And I understand why she got in trouble, and I understand why maybe it wasn't the best delivery, but what she was trying to say was the same thing we're saying right now. Is just like, don't be the one who holds yourself back.
True.
Do it. Take a risk on yourself. The president of the United States has gone bankrupt how many times and still thinks he is truly the best person in the world. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world and maybe the most evil. Like,
I saw a bumper sticker off topic on a Tesla the other day and said, I bought this before I knew how evil he was.
yeah, yeah,
Just like, is that where we've arrived? The bumper stickers on the back of a Tesla?
yeah.
That's where we've arrived. Tell us about Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, so Sports Illustrated was one of the coolest things that probably has ever happened to me in my life. If you would have asked me in high school, for example, what is the magazine that would be least likely to write about you, I probably would have said Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. Um, but they,
Literally.
yeah, literally. But they actually wrote to me 2 times before I even responded, because I thought it was fake. So they wrote to me on
How
Inst
sad is that, though?
Well,
Right? Think about that, because you're just this powerful woman doing powerful things, and you're like, oh, it's fake.
it's
It's
just
like, wait a minute, hold on. Let's retrain our thoughts,
yeah.
right?
No, you're 100%
Crazy.
right. Yeah.
Yes, I deserve to be at that table.
Yeah, no, I
In
mean,
swimsuit edition, yes.
well, so they wrote to me and they were like, the team here like loves your account and follows your account, and we'd love to write an article about you.
That's massive.
Yeah, and I was like, Absolutely. I would love to be involved in that. And I mean, it was a great interview, and again, like, shows exactly what you said. Like,
Mm,
don't hold yourself
mm.
back. I would have never written to Sports Illustrated and said, "Hey, do you want to write an article on me?" Um,
That's so great.
and again, like, that was one of the things I shared, and like everyone I've ever met in my entire life came out of the woodwork and was
Of
like,
course. Oh, hey,
"Hey,
Blair, what's going
what
on?
are you doing?"
Yes. So funny how that works.
But yeah, it was a very cool article, and it reminded me of all those times when back when I was a kid and people were like, "I read Sports Illustrated for the articles," and I'm like,
Sure.
"Now you
Yeah.
can read it from my article."
When does that come out or is it out?
So it came out last week.
Okay. Where can we get it?
You can find it online. You can find it on their actually, it might not still be on their homepage, but it was on their homepage.
Okay.
You can definitely find it on all of my social
Okay.
accounts. Um, but yeah, plus also I hope that that's not the only article that's
Mm-mm.
written about me.
No.
Um, yeah, that there will be a lot more. But again, like, the coolest thing for me is like I'm literally getting any of this by being supported by women. Like,
Mm.
it's kind of the ultimate, like, can you be, I don't want to say girl's girl, but kind of like,
Right.
can your whole thing be that you support women, and that if women support each other, you can do a lot.
A lot more. There's more. There's strength in numbers. Right.
Absolutely.
Um, what's one thing, and we'll close out with this, one thing that's been on your radar that you want to do personally that would translate into what you're doing right now for your life's work?
Oh man, there's so many.
Name two.
Okay, I will. Great. One of them would be there is a 7 marathons in 7 days over 7 continents
Holy
challenge.
crap. How much food do you have to eat for something like that?
A lot.
Oh my goodness.
So they literally, it's expensive because obviously you're doing a lot of travel. So I'd need to be sponsored, and would obviously like want to do it with an organization like Girls on the Run or the American Cancer Society or something like that, where I'm raising funds. Um, but yeah, you start off in Antarctica and you run a marathon there, and then you get on a plane and go to each of the continents and run a marathon. I would love to do that. And then as I'm expanding Girl News, like I love the idea of a podcast.
Mm,
I want to be super intentional with how I expand. This was one lesson that like I'm still learning, is like that 80/20 rule,
mm,
you know? I don't want to just spread myself too thin and just have everything kind of be
right,
like, I'd rather really focus on a few things that I do really, really well and have a
right,
huge impact.
right.
So when I'm big enough where, I don't know, I can have Kylie Kelsey, I can
Mm,
talk to Michelle Obama, I can talk, these top people, then like, great. Yeah, that sounds incredible. But right now, in terms of podcasting, like, there's so many podcasters that
mhm,
are incredible that are already
mhm,
out there.
mhm.
Um, so I don't know. We'll see, I guess, where it takes me. Um, I think another thing though, when we're on this topic, a difference I think between maybe men and women sometimes is men are so almost overly confident about everything.
Mhm.
Somebody was talking to me actually recently about like their business, and they want to scale it and all this stuff. And they were like, could you help me with it? I was like, yeah, yeah. I was like, send me over the investor deck. And they sent it to me. And I was like, what? Like, this isn't a worse place than like Girl News. Like, I wouldn't go to an investor right now with like Girl News where it is, but like this guy is like trying to hire me and trying to blah, blah. And it's not anything against that person. It's the opposite. It's
Right.
just like, he's like, I'm going to be a billionaire by next year, and this is how I'm going to do it. Whereas even in that conversation, I was like, oh, I could do a podcast, but there's so many other great podcasts out
Right.
there, and things like that. So that's actually kind of even a lesson to me. This question is like, dude, pick something, believe in yourself,
And
and
do
go
it.
for it.
Yeah.
And you can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a life lesson for all of us, right? Because there's so many of us that have the entrepreneurial spirit where we feel like we're going to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? So I feel like that's the takeaway, right? As a woman in life, do it. Just start, do it, believe in yourself. educate other women along the way, empower women along the way. Collaboration is more powerful than isolation. I really believe that. I believe that the more that we surround ourselves with women that lift each other up, we're going to be more impactful that way. And I feel like you are on the brink of something so amazing. And I'm so glad that we got you in, because I will be that person who will say, I remember when Blair was sitting right across from me doing an interview. And this is when you are interviewing Michelle Obama and you are interviewing the Hillary Clintons of the world and even Kamala Harris at some point, and anybody else, on that spectrum. So I am so proud of you. I know you probably work so much up here that you don't have the time to sit and just realize how accomplished you are.
Thank you.
You probably don't take enough time to say, I'm proud of you, right? Because we're so, not that we, but women generally do things for other women, right?
Yeah.
They dress for other women. They speak a certain way for other women. And we need to break that, because, I had somebody ask me the other day, wow, you look really nice. Where are you going? I said, "No, I'm not going anywhere. This is for me.
Yeah.
I got dressed up for myself. I put on makeup for myself. I send myself flowers, right? So if you don't have that special person in your life, you don't have to have that person or that existence or that job or that opportunity to make you feel special. Like you said, we were special in the womb,
Yeah.
right? So out the gate. Blair, thank you.
Thank you so
much
having
for
me.
being so transparent, so authentic, and so impactful. And I just wish nothing but the best for you guys. Follow her, Girl News, on IG.
Yeah, so on Instagram and TikTok, actually, and Facebook, it's Girl News, but the G is a 9. So 9 IRL News.
What is that? What's that all about? I saw that.
Somebody already had
Play on it.
news.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good play, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah,
It works.
it's catchy.
Yeah.
So follow her. I am telling you right now, you thought you knew the news. You don't know the news until you actually see what she's sharing out there. That is so relevant and so impactful. And for you women that are out there listening or watching, this is your sign to just start. Believe in yourself. Surround yourself with like-minded women. We are here to help one another. If we cannot be of service to mankind, let alone to each other as women, then we're fighting against ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's about. Blair, thank you. I commend you. My chihuahuas say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Corbin's excited. San Diego, as always, we are always excited to share with you. And I cannot wait to see you on the flip side. Peace out.